You're listening to the Light Novel Podcast. Visit us online at lightnovelpodcast.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Light Novel Podcast. I know we said the next one would be JK Haru, but I lied. Well, maybe not. Maybe lying is kind of a bad way of putting it. I kind of underestimated how much of the year was left when I decided that. And so in the midst of all the holiday madness, we kind of decided that we would do what we did last year and talk about our favorite reads of the past year and maybe just talk a little bit about a title or two that we're looking forward to in 2020 because, good Lord, a whole lot of light novel series were licensed over the course of 2019. We were talking about it earlier, and Mirage was saying that there's at least 44 titles that have been licensed that there isn't even a volume released yet. And that doesn't include all of the ones that, say, J-Novel Club announced earlier in the year and that they've since put out volumes. So, yeah, like we're probably pushing, I'd say, over 70 volumes that were licensed this year alone. So, lots to talk about, lots to be excited about. It's a pretty good time to be a light novel fan. So, joining me tonight is most of the cast. I have Bio Gundam.
Happy New Year's, motherfuckers.
I've got Jean-Luc.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
I've got Kyle.
Hola.
Hola. I can always count on you, Kyle. I've got Mirage.
Good morning.
And I have Terrence.
What's up?
All right, fantastic. Unfortunately, Flies is apparently absolutely inundated by work, so he couldn't be with us. And, you know, Tom is like our resident member in absentia or something. He keeps promising me someday he won't have so much schoolwork and he'll be able to pop in for a podcast, but I don't know. We'll see. So, first of all, we'll run through a couple of news items. First off, I will just mention, of course, the new issue of Kono light novel ga Sugoi was released. This one is basically opens up voting to fans and to a select number of industry insiders, these being whether they work for publishers, whether they run their own websites, that kind of stuff. And they do their annual rankings. If you want to check that out, a little Google search will, well, I'll put a link for a couple of things you can check out. I did do a video. I did 3 videos covering the Bunko Bone, Tonko Bone, and the top 10 of the decade lists. So if you want to check that out, I'll do a little self-plug. You can check that out on my YouTube channel. But there's just too much to go over. That's like a whole episode on its own. Next up, The Detective is Already Dead is a new series that won the 15th annual MF Bunko J Light Novel Rookie Award. This one sounds kind of interesting. The story of Tante Wamo Shinderu follows Kimihiko Kimitsuka, a young man who 4 years ago became the assistant of a mysterious detective known as Siesta on a hijacked airplane. Together, Kimihiko and Siesta went on mind-boggling globe-trotting adventures while combating a secret organization. But all of that came to an end when they were separated by Siesta's death. In the present day, Kimihiko tries to return to an ordinary, boring life as a high school student. But things are never that simple, even though the detective is already dead. That sounds like it's kind of a cool series. We'll see if it gets picked up at some point.
Yeah, the artwork for that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah,
I agree.
Like the cover, the way they did like her reaching in from like a different scene and him reaching up. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, the artwork for it looks good. And it's kind of, you know, I'm not the kind of person to always trash on isekai, but it is kind of nice to see a different genre getting some prominence in a major light novel award.
Well, the thing is that like isekai at the moment is kind of like what mecha was during like the early like 80s and 90s. Like because if you look at anime back during like the 70s to 90s, like it was mostly dominated by mecha, and light novels at the moment are primarily dominated by like isekai. So it's a trend. Like it will go away and something else will replace it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
It's just what sells right now, so they're pushing it heavily. When it stops selling, yeah, we're going to pick up something else.
Well, what I found interesting, I mean, we're not going through the whole Kono light novel ga Sugoi, but the Bunko list, top 10 Bunko list, was almost entirely slice of life, and it had like one pure fantasy title, but it had no isekai. None at all.
Yeah, I think Frog did an article. It might have been a reaction to that.
Yeah.
Frog-kun, about how rom-com and these kind of like high school and college slice of life, they're coming back.
Oh yeah, it seems like they're making a big comeback. Couple of manga things. First off, a couple ending. First off, the Eromanga Sensei manga spinoff about Elf Yamada is coming to a close. It ended actually. It ended with the November 27th issue. We also have the end of Kino's Journey, the manga. It ended in the Dengeki Daioh magazine, which just came out, I guess in this past week or two. In terms of a couple of mangas coming, first off, we have a couple of spin-off ones. Suppose a kid from the last dungeon Boonies moved to a starter town is getting a slice of life spin-off manga. This one already, there's an official manga license of the light novel, but this one is focusing, it's titled Suppose a Kid from the Last Dungeon Boonies Worked at a Restaurant in a Starter Town. So I don't know if it's focusing on sort of this side adventures of the character working in a restaurant, or whether it's basically
I read the first volume, and he gets a job at a restaurant, and when he goes up to the guy to get a job at the restaurant, the guy fucking thinks he's some sort of like assassin, because the guy who runs the restaurant used to be like a member of the Royal Guard, and his like battle instincts or warrior instincts are fucking flaring up red because he can sense how powerful this kid is, and he thinks this kid's like a master fucking assassin.
So
it's funny. I like it.
So you know what? So it may very well focus on his restaurant adventure as opposed to all the rest of the stuff that he does. And then we also have The Eighth Son. Are you kidding me? It's getting a new manga. The manga's title is The Starting Story. Apparently it follows the main character's life as a child and features stories that are not in the novel's main manga adaptation. So, just, I guess, bunch of side stories when the main character is a younger child. That one is getting a couple of series that are getting, and then there's, I guess, just one more series that's getting a manga adaptation, and that is Meidea Tensei Monogatari, which the novel's story is set in a magical world named Meidea and centers on Makia, the daughter of a Margraviate family. She studies magic alongside a boy knight who is named Thor, who is also a person who came from another world to guard a savior girl. Despite their strong bond, Makia and Thor are separated. Makia decides to enter the School of Magic in the capital in a bid to meet Thor again. So, kind of seems like it's mixing fantasy. It sounds like he's an isekai, but I don't know. I don't think the main character is an isekai. I don't know. Anyway, it's getting a manga. It's not a series that we have licensed in English. And honestly, it's not a series that I've really heard anything about. So, but maybe that's changing, hence why it's getting a manga adaptation. Next up, just a couple of other little things here. A couple of anime announcements. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime is getting 3 more original anime DVDs. So these are original episodes separate from the main series. But what makes them kind of interesting is that they were actually written by the novel's author, Fusei. So these are new stories exclusively for this 3-part anime. That the author has written.
Probably Beach episode or something like that.
Sorry?
Yeah, you had the
Probably the beach
you had the
episode.
sumo
Or
episode.
onsen episode.
Yeah, exactly. They've already had episodes like that, so this is another. But I don't know. This one makes it sound like it's maybe a single story that's being done over 3 episodes, whereas those other ones were kind of self-contained, right? So I don't know.
The problem is that the story in the main series is more or less continuing, so there's not much room to slot in any meaningful story anywhere in between.
Well, I don't know, but they're
I
gonna
mean,
try.
the 2 V that came out, they were fine. Like, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I don't think again. It's just whether it's I think Mirage's point is like, is it going to be fluff or is it going to be actually something that makes it feel like there's some substance to it?
Which, I think it will be in between.
Yeah, I can see it being a bit of fluffy stuff because, yeah. Anyway, then Nachi Kyo's Remake Our Life novel series are getting an anime. The story centers on the unsuccessful game director Kiyoya Hashiba. His company goes bankrupt and he ends up returning to his parents' home. He lies in bed thinking about the successful creators of his generation. When he opens his eyes, Kiyoya finds that he has gone back in time 10 years to when he started college. He has an opportunity to remake his life, starting as an arts college student. He now lives in a 4-person co-ed share house. Kiyoya has the chance to spend his formative years with creators he knows will be famous in the future, but things might not turn out as he expected. So this one getting an anime, popular series actually, sells quite well. It used to always place in the top 10 when I was covering like what the better sellers in Japan were. I think, Terrence, this is a title that you've been talking about that you were hoping would get licensed.
Yeah, definitely. I've only read a small portion because I'm hoping it gets licensed. But yeah, it's basically it's kind of like Relife, except instead of taking a pill to become younger, he physically travels back in time to relive his college days, I think, and he basically gets to go to his dream school this time. So yeah, I'm excited to try this one. It does look like it's that slice of life rom-com kind of thing. It does sound like there's going to be a little bit of drama, obviously, character dynamic wise. But yeah, the art is really good. They've been pushing it a lot. They've done music CDs for the characters. Obviously, now they have an anime coming, so yeah, it's been on that trajectory for a while now.
So definitely a title to keep your eyes out for, because, if those things are making a comeback, we may just get that one. Another one that's getting an anime. I shave my beard, then I pick up a high school girl.
Really?
I kid you not, it's getting an anime, yep.
Oh, that one flew under my radar.
The novel's romantic comedy story begins when 26-year-old Yoshida, an employee at a major IT company, meets a high school girl on his way home after drinking. Yoshida's crush had decisively rejected him after he pined for her for 5 years, and he had decided to drink his sorrow. Sayu, the runaway high school girl he meets, says they could sleep together if he lets her stay with him. Yoshida chides the girl for the suggestion, but eventually lets her stay with him.
Yeah, because he's drunk.
That description made it sound way worse than
I
it
know.
actually is.
Like, I read a few chapters of the manga. It's actually quite good. Like, I don't see it going the fishy line that much.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. But so far, it's kind of a drama, heartwarming story.
What I could see, though, is like, I haven't read it yet, but just based on, these kind of stories, you wonder if, they'll become close, she'll become, she'll age, and then they'll date,
I was going to say, when she gets legal.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of this is me from the outside looking in. I'm wondering if that is
but
the end
having
game
read
for
it,
that.
I'm not sure. Like,
Well,
I don't see it going that way.
This is Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
I
it's
guess-
Japan. I
so-
know it's Japan. But
So another another route is like if it doesn't go that way, if he ends up with somebody else,
yeah,
like,
because
what
there's
happens
other
to her?
female character in the show, so there's something going on with two of his coworkers. So
Well, who knows? I mean, maybe it'll be one of those things where the teenage girl is actually quite worldly, and she helps him deal with women better and to help him actually find romance. It could be almost like that reverse mentor kind of thing, right?
yeah, well, I think it's both way because like it's still a mystery. Like I just read a few chapters, but I think they're going to keep the mystery for a while. But the girl, she actually came from Hokkaido up to Tokyo,
Oh.
and she's been on the run for 6 months. Like you don't like just leave like that for 6 months without a really good reason. Like I'm sure there's
Yeah.
something else behind, and
That's what I heard on the forums, that it's like really dramatic and that there is something behind. You have to think about why would she try to
Right.
shack up with this guy? Why would she just try to do that?
and like
And
for
so-
him, it's actually she's just a presence. Like when like he's an overworker, like he works a lot and workaholic. So when he gets home, there's someone there. Like
It's like that 3D hologram thing that they were selling in Japan. Did you see that?
no,
Oh, dude, you should totally look it up. It is essentially this like tube, and there's a 3D hologram girl in it, and she does things like send you text messages through the day about how she misses you and she hopes you're having
Oh
a
my
good
God.
day, and when you text her, if you say I'll be home in 10 minutes, you can tie her into your smart home so she'll turn the lights on for you and start like the water boiling or whatever for your coffee
whoa,
or
that's
whatever.
crazy.
And then when you walk in
I
the door, she wishes you. She says like "Welcome home," and they even have it like if you tell her that we're going to sit and watch TV, her graphic will change, so she's actually like in pajamas, sitting on like a little seat and stuff, watching TV with you and stuff. Dude, it is the creepiest thing I've seen.
I know.
I bet
Japan
she'll
will
call her
never cease.
owner master.
I know somebody married a holograph of Hatsune Miku.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the same
Oh,
system.
No, someone married their DS as well. Like, fucking Japan's great. Just like, God bless them. God bless them.
Yeah, so yeah, no, Google that stuff. Do like, like hologram wife
thanks.
Japan or something like that. Anyway, it's pretty. It's like you watch the trailer and you're like, holy Jesus, this is pretty wild. Like, I mean, it's kind of like Siri taken to creepy level. It's not just Google.
I mean, no, it's gonna get creepy level when they actually start making like fully like sentient sex robots. I mean, that's when we're gonna get into creepy
Does
territory.
it come with a real doll?
No, God, no. That's
going
so-
to get
Okay,
really
that's so
next is
creepy when
Spinoff.
separately.
she's
Listen,
It's going to get really creepy when she starts writing with ketchup on your omelette.
Oh no. Yeah,
if I ever go to Japan, I'm gonna try and find one of those because I have to see it to believe
oh
it.
man. Well, it was It's pretty wild. Anyway,
God bless. Okay.
a couple of other little news things. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? Infinite Combat. This is a video game which has actually now been announced that is coming out in the West in 2020. It mixes elements of dungeon crawling, role-playing gameplay with a visual novel-style story. So apparently it features events from the first anime season as well as some new content. And I guess in addition to like a story mode, the game also has a procedurally generated extra dungeons and date events so you can interact with other characters. So if you're a big
We didn't even get the last Danmachi video game in Europe. The international version was only released in North America.
well, we We North American Danmachi fans are sorry for you. No, just kidding. I haven't played it either.
I'm not sure if it's all of North America. Maybe it's only US. I'm not sure if you have it in Canada.
Yeah, we do. I think we've. Well, are you talking about the one that was like a mobile game or whatever?
Yeah, Memoria.
Oh yeah, no, I can get it.
we had it.
Yep, we can get it.
Yeah, this one at least it's on console. I think.
Yeah, it is coming out for like PlayStation 4.
And I think there's going to be physical copies, so you could at least reverse import.
Yeah, I think it'll get more of a wider release.
For consoles, there shouldn't be any problem. That's
Yeah. So, well, it was initially released in Japan as a console game for the PlayStation consoles. So, that seems to be what they're doing this time around. So, yeah, looks pretty good. Certain Magical Index. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, just before we started recording. The light novel series is getting a third series, which I always wonder just what the hell, like, why? It's just a continuation. It's the same damn series.
It's the Revelations of the Toe Man, Part 3. Let me read you a bit of the Revelations. These 12 Toe Men sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go into your way, and any girl out of your harem leave ye not. And as ye go preach, saying, Thou shalt live thy life correctly. Punch the magicians, punch the espers, punch the scientists, punch the angels. Punch as ye have received, punch as give.
You don't punch God? Come on, I think I'm let down now. Anyway, it's going to be called, so we had a certain magical index, then a certain magical index New Testament. Now we have Genesis Testament, certain magical index.
Wasn't the last, I mean, I don't watch Index either, but wasn't the last one not, like, super well received? Or at
the
least,
last
like,
anime wasn't.
wise?
Yeah, the third season of the anime was generally not appreciated by fans mainly because it rushed through a lot of really big material. Like the novel side of it, that storyline, a lot of people are very positive about, which I think is why.
Oh yeah, the freaking novel version of that, the novel version is fucking amazing. It's gritty, it's gory as fuck, and so it's just awesome.
So yeah, so there you go. So the light novel side, people loved it. The anime apparently cut out a crap ton of stuff, rushed a bunch of stuff, so kind of left fans a little disappointed by the sounds of it.
I had no idea what was going on. I stopped after 5 or 6 episodes.
That's the other thing I heard, yeah, that unless you had read the light novels, you'd be lost, that it didn't make a lot of sense because of
there
a
were
lot
a couple of people that had never appeared before in the series fighting each other, and I didn't know who they were and why they were fighting.
Yeah. So yeah,
that was a bit confusing.
You have to read the side stories.
Yeah, it really suffered from not having the it sounds like it suffered from not having the budget and just being. They only crammed it into one. Did they do it in just one core, or did they do it in 2? I can't remember.
In 2.
It was 2.
In 2?
They did it in 1. They literally crammed like fucking 6 books. I think 6 to 7 books.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was 2 core. It was 24 episodes.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah.
Well,
It probably could have used a third core, I think is what it boils down to. It could have used another, 12 episodes. But anyway. But the light novels...
Although the Accelerator anime, by the way, is fucking lit. By the way, you should watch it.
Why is it they can adapt the manga just fine, but they can't do the light novels? Yeah. Oh, well. And then we...
Also, the dub is fucking amazing as well. Like, the dub is great as well.
All right. So then we've got 2 licenses. The first one, this is a Cross Infinite World license, so you know it's going to be interesting, and it's a one-shot apparently. It's called The Misfortune Devouring Witch is Actually a Vampire? Would you pay in blood to have access to the witch's knowledge? Rumors about Yuri Wato being a witch who feeds upon the misfortune of others have kept customers away from her Eastern medicine shop as long as she can remember, until he showed up. Intrigued by the rumors, Count Ernest Travis Selden, close attendant to the Highland King and a notorious eccentric, seeks the Hinomoto witch's specialized knowledge to solve a royal incident. But borrowing the witch's aid comes at a steep price. one that can't be paid in gold or jewels. How will the stubborn shut-in vampire witch, who hails from the east, handle the peculiar western count, who frequently brings her problems to solve and seems all too happy to pay the price? So there's that one. It sounds more like their usual up their alley, but I kind of like the fact that Cross Infinite World licenses very different stuff, and they license a lot of stuff that's direct from the authors. Like, it's not even stuff that's ever been published in Japan, which is probably why most of us don't know of it, but it's pretty cool. And then I had to leave this one till the end. Seven Seas licensed Buck Naked in Another World. When an ordinary Japanese man is catapulted headfirst into a fantasy world, he's especially disappointed that he was sent stark naked. Adapting to life in a land of monsters and magic is hard enough without having to do it in your birthday suit. But Yoshida Shuta is going to grin and bear it, or bear it, as best he can.
So I saw online, I want to say it was Frog, was like, they had bought like almost every series that came out, but they said like this was the one that they're just not gonna cover.
No, yeah,
this was the final
That's
one.
the
They're
straw.
just not gonna try that. Yeah,
It's the straw that broke the camel's isekai back. It's like done. No friggin' swinging dicks. No. Who was it that was it? Oh no, it was Brandon Varnell or whatever that said that he read the manga of it, and that basically like the dude, it's like he goes from being people's slave and stuff. Like it's apparently some kind of like, he's like, you've got to be a masochist to actually like this story. Like, it's just, even Brandon, who's like, you know, all into the Yeshi and stuff, he was like, nope. I was like, the second it had naked in the title, I thought he'd be into it, but he was like, nope, not the one.
Yeah, it was either Frog Kun or Sean Gaffney, I think it is. It was one of them. Was like, I'm not gonna cover this.
Oh no, that'd be Sean. I'm sure that's Sean.
I have no idea what idea Seven Seas had when they licensed that.
Oh, dude, who even knows, man?
What was the one they licensed before? Do you remember the one that was like, it was like a mecha type series with like super ecchi on the front, but it was only like 2 volumes.
Division Maneuver.
Yeah, that one. This one seems kind of like that one, where it's just kind of like a super random license.
I mean, like that. Yeah, okay, yeah, that one did seem really random. You're right. That definitely seemed random.
That one, I guess, was good, but you know.
Yeah, like I heard that one was better than what you'd give it credit for. Yeah, based on the booty shots on the front cover. Yeah, but yeah, this one but you know what put me over about this one? Because of course I'm curious about this, right? Because I'm like, what the hell? And so I go to Amazon.co.jp to take a look at how many volumes it is and stuff like that. And they have previews, of course, where you can look at usually the first couple of pages, which means it shows you like the color artwork. He's wearing pants in the second volume. I'm like, so why are you making a big deal about being buck naked in another world if you're just getting clothes on within the first 10, 15 pages? Like, this is stupid. Like, I just don't understand. If the author had done something ridiculous, like he can't wear pants, maybe I'd buy it. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, it would be really cool if he was like a barbarian, like in D&D. Because like D&D, like in fifth edition D&D, like they don't generally wear armor and shit because
Equipment
they have unarmored
They
defense
still
and
wear
shit. Which
clothes.
raises...
yeah, like,
I know, but you could literally go around as a buck naked barbarian and it'd be awesome.
well, I mean, even in the first volume, it shows him wearing like a little loincloth to cover his bits because, well, you know, I guess that would be pushing things a little far. But I, like I said, I was just like, I don't understand. You're saying buck naked in another world, like you've put it in the title, and yet he doesn't obviously stay that naked. Like, I don't understand.
I mean, they could have at least licensed my XXX is Excalibur.
Let's find the most obscure that's what we should do, dude. For their licensing announcements, we should see if we can game the system. We should pick a podcast and we will pick the most obscure, weird ass random title, and we'll be like, everybody listening to this podcast has to put this in the upcoming next month 7 Seas. Let's see if we can get it licensed. Oh man, we'll just create like a template, and we'll be like, everybody request these titles, just see if we can game the system, see if we can get them in licensed. Oh god. But you're right, like I was just like, I'm like, of all the light novels that are out there, this one, like, have we finally hit the isekai wall where it's like, we just will license anything if you're born into another world. It doesn't matter. Like, can we get it for cheap?
I think it's very. I think I wouldn't be surprised because eventually because you see this like in markets, because eventually it's going to reach a peak saturation point where there's just nowhere left to go and it's just going to go down, and maybe these upcoming years it's going to reach that peak saturation point. Like, I think this is like. I think this is like the start of like we're reaching peak saturation at this point, and eventually it's just going to go downhill for isekai from here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I we'll see in a couple of years' time if I was correct, but you see the same thing with like mecha anime. Like, it reached its peak, it reached peak saturation, and then it just like slowly like fucking died off and dropped off. So we'll see in a couple of years if I was right or not.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It just feels kind of like it was like, what isekai can we get for the most reasonable price this time? Anyway, okay, so that's gonna.
I mean, they did Bear 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 this year, so that one seems to be quite popular.
Well, no, I mean, like honestly, 7 Seas has some big titles. I'm not saying they're like the licensor of crap. I mean, they have some really solid titles, which is why I was surprised when I was like, really, guys? Like, this is the best you could do? It just seems kind of, I don't know, unless it is somehow some phenomenal light novel and I am just biased because the title seems stupid as hell. I don't know.
Well, maybe it was a deal. Like, if you license this, you need to take the Buck Naked Adventurer. Go.
Yes. Yeah. Could have been a throw-in like that.
Like you're not entirely, that's not entirely unlikely. That's not impossible. So.
Now, was this one licensed during like I forget, was it a Twitter like licensing event?
Yeah, it was a Twitter announcement after Anime New York City.
I think it looks bad if it's like, I think this one was the only novel licensed. Like, sometimes you can hide some of these novels in, if you're licensing like 2 or 3 awesome series at once. But, yeah.
This was the only light novel that they announced in that round.
Yeah, together with 4 or 5 manga.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a little dicey. Anyway, all right. So, moving right along. That's it for the news. There's nothing else to really talk about. So, 2019 coming to a close. I'm actually hoping to have this posted before it is honestly 2020. I'm hoping to get this out in the next 5 days. Do some marathon editing. In any case, so what we're going to do is we are first of all going to give our top 3 titles of the past year that we read, or 3 titles that, just really did a lot for us, or, that we just really enjoyed. And then we're going to talk a little bit about stuff that's been announced that's probably coming out next year, barring any, massive no game, no life type delays. And we'll see what happens. So, all right, starting off, we could just go down the list. Bio, what did you like in 2019?
So I decided to do something a little different. I decided to take series that while not exactly my favorites, but series that surprised me or, just series that I just thoroughly enjoyed this year, because if I picked my actual favorites, it would be the same as last year and it wouldn't be exactly a great podcast. So the series that I picked was Goblin Slayer, So I'm a Spider, So What, and The Devil is a Part-Timer. Those are the series I picked.
All right.
Because they all had some really good volumes, and So I Am a Spider, So What. I mean, that series, like, I was just kind of blown away by, like, the level of quality. Like I'll go into more detail later. So with Goblin Slayer, when this series, like, first came out, like, because when I first heard about this series, it was like a manga, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. Then I found it had a light novel, and I started reading it, and I'm just, like, really enjoying it. It's a really cool dungeon crawl. I like Goblin Slayer as a character. He's a character that I can relate to a lot, and his some of the stuff he does. And there was, like, some really fucking powerful volumes, really good volumes. What was the one of my favorite volumes was the recent one where Goblin Slayer gets involved in, like, city politics and stuff, and basically a bunch of people, like, shove him off because he's, like, a scruffy fucking vagabond, but he gets the job done. And then there was, like, this princess or some high-ranking noble who wanted to become an adventurer. She gets ambushed by goblins, and we all know how that story ends, and Goblin Slayer saves her.
That's
that
spoilers
was, like,
for
a really
volume
good
7, I guess.
Yeah, no, that is the most recent.
Another one of my
That's the one I wanted to start reading tomorrow.
another favorite volume of mine is the one where they go up to the mountains.
Oh, that's
It's
yeah, that one's going to be where they
the mountain volume is really cool. A lot of cool action happened, a lot of tactics, a lot of teamwork, a lot of, like, Lord of the Rings vibes going on.
That's going to be the new
and
movie.
It's just fun.
Yep.
It's a really good arc, and I also read the Goblin Slayer Year 1 light novels. I got around to reading those. They're really good as well. It's showcasing, Goblin Slayer from his humble roots, and it's really cool. My favorite so far from the Goblin Slayer Year 1 series is when he does the same trick. He does a similar trick to what he does in that episode where he kills that troll, where he, like, fucking floods the room. Except he uses the scroll to, like, push these goblins away into, like, I think it was like a cave or someplace, like, really high up, or, like, he uses that same trick, and it's awesome. And it's like, oh cool, it's a callback. He did that in the book. It's like, oh, so that's where it came from. So and it's really cool to see, like, his relationship with Cowgirl and Guild Girl start building up, and you can kind of see, like, it's building up to where it gets to in the main series. Mm-hmm. So do you want me to continue with the other series?
Yeah, no, keep going, because we're going to talk about each of our own as we go.
All right. So when it comes to So I Am a Spider, So What, this series is very surprising to me. So it takes, like, the typical, isekai, reincarnation, that kind of bullshit. It takes the typical kind of shit and flips it on your head. Like, it's like an M. Long Shyamalan movie. There's, like, fucking twists and turns, and it's like, things you think you know what's going on, and then it, like, flips the fucking script on you. And I love the characters. I love the story. It's so fucking fascinating. And all the characters in the show are unreliable narrators. Like, and each of the books and a lot of the chapters, they're not even in fucking chronological order. Like characters that you meet in one volume won't even be fucking introduced, and, like, won't be even introduced for another fucking 10 volumes. And we're like, because there's, like, this one character that shows up in one of the books, and I'm like, who is this person? A couple of volumes later, I meet that person. It's like, okay, so this is who they are, and this is where we met them, but how did they get to there? And it's like everyone's, like, fucking manipulating each other, and it's like, your puppet is a puppet who's behind the scenes being a puppet, who's a puppet, and this guy's a puppet to a puppet who's being a puppet. And it's like this endless conspiracy keikaku bullshit. And it's like, on the surface, it's like, oh, a spider girl, killing monsters and trying to survive and out of this. And then behind the scenes, it's like this never-ending spanning of Machiavellian plots and people puppeteering each other. And it's like, it's so fucking fascinating, and it's like I've never seen many isekai that go into so much detail with their world building and all these multi-layered keikaku conspiracies. It's just very fun, if not a little bit confusing at times. Like, this is an actual book that I have to fucking pay attention to, because if I don't fucking pay attention, I'll miss important details because unreliable narrators and shit.
Yep. No, I agree. I found the same thing.
The next one, it's a series that has been a bit on the back burner for a while, but I finally got around to reading more of it this year. It's The Devil is a Part-Timer, because ever since the anime came out and I got the light novels, I've been meaning to fucking, sit down and read through most of the pile I've got on my computer.
Yep.
I've been going through it slowly this year. I'm up to the 11th volume as far as the series is concerned, and I'm really liking it. And I'm liking the character of Sadao Mao and Ashia, and it's going in a way that I expected in a sense, but also at the same time sort of going in a different way. Like my original thought on Sadao Mao was either that he was like an evil demon lord, and him coming in contact with humanity was like softening it up a bit. But no, they never did that. Like the little spoilers in case
I was going to say,
you
might want to be careful. Don't spoil stuff.
I'm not going to spoil major shit, but like Sadao Mao, like him as a person, he has always been the same person he always was, even as a demon king. And I'm just kind of like, that's really fucking fascinating, and it sort of plays on the idea of, good and evil is sort of, it's all about perspective.
Yes, I agree.
To Sadao Mao, and I think it's fascinating that a series like this that started out as a comedy sort of has that sort of moral quandary and dynamic of that, like, hey, this evil demon lord, like you hear that he's evil, and you see the effects of some of the stuff he does, but is he actually really a bad guy? Like, is he as evil as people say he is? And apparently, no, he's actually like a really good guy. And it's funny because with Sadao Mao, it's almost like this case of like this benevolent tyrant in a sense. Like, he has like good intentions, but the problem is that those good intentions leads to horrible consequences for humanity as a whole. And I just like the dynamic of, these demons coming to a foreign world and just learning about human society and learning about modern days. And they have supernatural powers, and it's so fucking fascinating. And also some of the deep lore and spoiler stuff that I'm not going to spoil here. We'll save that for the next podcast. It's just so morbidly fascinating, and I'm just curious to see it goes. I like the character interactions. I like the little romance that's sort of building up between Sadao Mao and Chihei. Is it Chihei or Chihei?
Chiho.
Sorry. I'm thinking of fucking Persona 4. Fuck me, sorry. Chiho. I'm liking it. It's like this very cute little romance. It's very cute. And I'm wondering if she'll ever become like the Queen of Demons in the future. Like, that'd be awesome.
When we did the podcast on that one, that was, I think, something that all of us mentioned was we all like Chiho because we were like, this girl, she should be like the big boobed airhead, and yet she's got like a good head on her shoulders, and
yeah, she's actually really surprising. Like, I like her. Like, she's a good female character. She isn't like completely passive, but at the same time, she isn't like the dynamic badass warrior like you see like in Matt Ripley or Sarah Connor. Like, she's a good mix in between. I think she's a good character, and I enjoy her. And she has such a good dynamic with Sadao Mao because she sees him for what he truly is. Like, despite some of the evil stuff that he has done, like, she sees him for who he is and loves him for who he is. And I think they just have a really good dynamic. Like Devil's a Part-Timer. Like, I'm glad I got into the series and got further into it. It's definitely doing some things that I didn't expect, and I'm sort of enjoying. It's like, it has a very different take on, like, the battle between heaven and hell, chaos and order. Like, it's a very sort of different take on it. Like, it isn't saying that both sides are evil. It's just all about perspective and other spoiler stuff that I won't mention. So yeah, Devil's a Part-Timer. Read it. It's great.
All right. Jean-Luc, what were your picks for this year?
So on my hand, I kind of read not as much as I would have liked to, because, well, life is life and stuff happen. But outside of that, my first pick was the one that I kind of enjoyed the most, that I laughed the most, is a sister is all you need. And even on the podcast, I had a lot of fun with you guys, and like that series is just hilarious. Like there's not much in terms of story, but like the dynamic of the characters, like all the cultural reference, the social commentaries. There's a lot of stuff over there that really drive me in, and I really had a good time reading that series. The second one is one that I didn't plan on reading, but because of the podcast, I kind of tagged along, and that was Faraway Paladin. So that one was really great. Like, I wasn't expecting anything when I went into it, but it was a really great read. Like, one of my most surprising read of the year. And lastly is one that I think it was one of my most anticipated novel that was licensed the year before, and that's Mushoku Tensei. Like the first one, like the first book, like it was good, but it's a lot of world building, so it's kind of lacking in action, and like it just like him living out like the first 7 year of his life, so there's not much there. It's very slow pace, but when you get into the second book, there's like a little bit of a better dynamic between the character, because he moves away, and there's other character he has to interact with. And I'm gonna start reading shortly the third volume, and that one, it's where the story picks up, so I expect it to be a bit better from the third volume on.
All right, cool. Kyle, what did you read this year that you liked?
All right, so first and foremost, I think it was one of the series that I said last year, but it's Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? So, well, maybe not so much as the original series, because since we're getting close to catching up with the Japanese releases, the English releases have been slowing down considerably.
Yeah, that's true.
But the sister series, Sword Oratoria, that follows Ainz and the Loki Familia, that series has seriously started picking up. You get to see, well, I don't want to go into too much spoilers, but you get to see just the kind of high stakes, high action that, you know, the guild's largest familia gets into. And it can get really intense, and it's a very different tone from the main series. And so, yeah, so you get just a lot of action, a lot of intrigue, not so much the shonen power of friendship, everything's going to be all right vibes. Yeah, there's a body count, and if you grew to like some characters in this side series, you know, they may not be there forever. And so, yeah, so you just get to see this completely different side of the same world that you get in the main series, and it's just great. I hear a lot of comments that says like they prefer Sword Oratoria to the main series, and I can understand that.
Huh. Really? Now, can I just ask you just really quickly, how many volumes have you read of Sword Oratoria at this time?
I'm up to date, so...
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
can I just ask then, do you find that, I mean, it sounds like obviously you're enjoying the series on its own merits, but do you find that it makes you actually like parts of the main series better? Like, does it complement the main series really well, or Do you just kind of find the two of them just kind of run their own gamut and like, okay, maybe I see some side stuff, but it doesn't matter. I'm just reading these two books separately.
There is some intersection. So at some points it is going to be necessary to understand what's going on in the main series, especially with the latest English release. And so that one it completely cuts out one character's side of the story, which is Bell's, because obviously he's in the main series and he's got his own narrative to work with. So it could be a little confusing because it's like, okay, what happened? Okay, we have A, we have C. It's like B is just completely gone from the volume. You have no idea what happens if you're only reading the side. But still, you get a lot of their own story of Loki Familia, and it goes deep into the characterizations of especially Eyes, because she appears to be this stoic, badass swordswoman, and it's like she is not all together. She is, she seems cool on the outside, but on the inside, she's barely holding it together.
Huh. All right.
Yeah, you should definitely read the main series before, because there are some volumes of Sword Oratoria that are happening concurrently with the invasion arc and the Xenos arc, and they don't go into much detail on what is happening on the on what these arcs are about. So it helps having read those before.
All right, cool. I mean, I've only read, I think, the first 2 volumes, but I mean, I like them well enough. It's just, again, trying to keep up with all of it's been a little tough, a little daunting. What was your next series, Kyle?
Okay, so now for these next 2, I'm going to go with a series that actually debuted this year. The first one will be Cooking with Wild Game. Yeah, so this one is actually very, very interesting because you might think that it's just a cooking isekai light novel, slice of life type thing. And, that is the general premise. But honestly, there is a lot of cooking, but there's not that really more kind of like foodgasm stuff like Food Wars has on anime and stuff like that. Yeah. So the author did something pretty interesting, is that, okay, you're going to a completely different world, and, you're not going to have just potatoes, carrots, onions. He's got this entirely new world of ingredients to work with. So something that it doesn't get too hung up on is, it doesn't go through all the recipes, all the measurements, how to cook it. Because, you're reading a novel, not a cookbook.
Right.
And so, that's some of the problems I have with like some of these other food animes and mangas. They get too caught up in the recipes, and it's like there's no story there. But yeah, and so you got this modern day guy that, he's thrown into a different world, and, all the recipes and stuff don't really do him any help. All he's got is just the principles of cooking in his head. And that can go from, food preparation, preservation, the value of salt, all that kind of stuff. And so we got, that aspect, but the other aspect is the community that he's thrown into. And it's this, they're called the Peoples of the Forest's Edge, or colloquially called like Giba Eaters, however you pronounce that. Yeah, they're kind of like pumped up wild boars. And so, and so they're a very kind of like hunter-gatherer sort of, or level of civilization. So they're really behind the times. what would we consider modern day. And so, just the development of bloodletting their meat, advances their community by so much. And so, you not only get his story of another world, but you get the story of this tribe of people that are slowly advancing, and just the impact of that cooking itself on its own has on a community.
Yeah, I've got to get back to that one. I've read through the first 2 volumes, and one of the things I liked was you see a lot of these cooking novels where they make this like super tasty dish. He gives it to the girls, and they're all like, "Oh yashi, this is so great! This tastes great!" And in this one, like, there's people that don't like certain foods. Like, he does, have to learn what are the tastes of these people. It's not just like, you make the most awesome dish ever and everybody likes it. And there's some people that obviously can't eat certain foods. They'll bring in the granny at one point, and he has to cook for them specialties. But yeah, I appreciated that it wasn't just like, everybody likes hamburgers.
Yeah.
There might be people that don't like hamburgers. Yeah.
There's this other light novel, Campfire Cooking in Another World. Have you read that? How does it compare to this one?
I haven't read that one, so I can't say.
I have not read that yet. Unfortunately.
All right. And what was your third title, Kyle?
Well, one last thing on cooking. Yeah, it's one thing I gotta warn about is that the main character himself is sort of an asshat. So the first 2 or 3 volumes, he's kind of a lot to handle, and so so it's just got to say that it's a bit much at times. And so, afterwards he does get better. So if you're like skipping out on the series because you don't, like him very much, you could just stick with it. He gets better, but the main story is the community that surrounds him, the people of the forest edge. And so there's a lot of great and varied characters within them. And so you definitely want to tough it out through there.
Cool. And what was your third title?
This year was a year of Ascendance of a Bookworm. We finally get it in English. And oh boy, has it had just a huge impact. Yeah, so it's another isekai, okay. But we got just this young woman. I think she's close to her 20s whenever she gets isekai'd by Shelf Kun. Yeah, her grandest aspiration is just to be surrounded by books. And that's all she wants. That's all she wanted in her normal life until an earthquake in a bookshelf took that away from her. And
ironically, she got crushed by books.
Yeah, she died doing what she loved.
Well, there you go. There's worse ways to go.
Yeah. And so she gets isekai'd into the body of a young girl who's, I believe, 5 years old. And it's this real sort of medieval world. The vast majority of the population can't even read, let alone, know what a book is. And so, so she has to build herself up from, practically nothing. And, oh, great, she's got a disease that's killing her. And it's just this really great tale of, starting from absolutely nothing to, trying to scrounge something together. And even the first the majority of the first volume takes place in just one room. And so, yeah, that's how small a scale it starts.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, the anime, the first season of the anime that goes over part 1 just concluded. So that would be the first 3 volumes.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you just see this little girl who only wants one thing and just elevating everything around her just as she's trying to reach this simple goal. And so it's kind of the same in that regard to Cooking with Wild Game, where, it's not only her story, it's the story of, her best friend, a merchant she meets along the way, and then the church gets involved, and it just keeps building and building and building upon that.
Yeah, I've picked up the first book. I got to read that as soon as I can. All I keep seeing is just how awesome it is. So, all right.
Yeah, I read through the first volume. I'm definitely excited to read more of it.
I mean, Flies won't stop fucking hyping it. He's like, bookworm.
Yeah, saw the anime and kind of made me want to read the books.
Well, that's good thing though, because how often do we say that? Like most of the time, we're like, man, anime is going to make nobody want to check this book out. I was going to just say, I'm glad the anime. They're actually. It sounds like they're doing it justice. That's all.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah, a quick shout out. Mao-sama retry. The anime was terrible.
I expected
the light
nothing
novel.
less.
Yeah, the light novel is much, much better. It has this real old school humor to it. So I'd say it's very close aligned to like Slayer's style of humor, where it just has joke after joke after joke, just back to back to back, as opposed to like Konosuba's just long open-ended comedy where it goes it sets up a joke, goes on for a little while, then you get the punchline and then the callback, and then it snowballs into something else. Mao-sama retry is just straight humor, straight parody, jokes, really funny. So go pick it up. Don't judge it by its anime because it was bad.
But most anime based on light novels are bad.
Yeah, but some are particularly stinky. Come on, man. All right, Mirage, what were your top reads this year?
Yeah, so my first 2 were pretty much set from the beginning, but I had a bit of trouble deciding on the third one because I read quite a lot of books this year. I decided not to mention Danmachi, Bookworm, or Goblin Slayer because I was pretty certain that they would be mentioned by others here.
And so they were.
Though for Goblin Slayer, I would have named Volume 6 instead of Volume 5.
Just do Goblin Slayer. I don't care. Like, just do it.
Yeah. Instead, I decided for my rank number 3 on. There was no secret evil fighting organization, so I made one myself.
All right. Seriously?
Seriously, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that series is so fucking good. I love it, too.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone. That's you have to like that sort of story. But if you like that sort of story, then you will love this book. So basically it's about one middle schooler who by accident realizes that he can use telekinesis to pick up some cookie crumbs from the floor, and then goes on to train his ability until he can juggle buses and basically would be able to destroy the world single-handedly, all the while looking for other espers and other people with supernatural abilities, and never finds any. And one day so maybe 10 or 12 years afterwards, when he has finished school and university and is already employed in a job, he decides, like the title is telling you, to found his own secret organization to help others experience the joy of being a superhero that he couldn't enjoy because nobody was there to fight. It's really fun. It's the first few chapters are a bit long because they the first 2 or 3 chapters are just explaining how he's training his ability, from expanding its range to expanding its versatility to expanding the strength, and each of those is its own small chapter. So you have to slog through that, but after that it becomes really, really good and fun.
Cool. I have some very sad news about that one. Unfortunately,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
I've already heard.
Yeah, so it's only 2 volumes are going to get released officially. The publisher on the Japan side has decided not to continue it. Now, it does have a web novel, and the web novel, I believe, is the author is going to wrap it up after whatever arc he's on. But yeah,
and
the light
I
novel,
think Sam
as of now, at least.
That fucking sucks.
And I think Sam has said that he might try to get the rights to publish the rest of the web novel. But that's, of course, subject to agreement from the Japanese publisher.
Oh, why?
Yeah,
it was so
so.
fucking good. It started out so fucking strong.
Yeah, I think it's done well here, too. So, yeah, I don't think J-Novel doesn't want it to continue.
The second novel was not quite as good as the first, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, wow. I didn't see that. I guess I wasn't in any J-Novel forums or anything lately, but, really? So, yeah, I guess we all sit around waiting to see what happens then.
Yeah, I still recommend it, even if it stays at this 2 volumes.
Yeah, I gotta try it. I already bought volume 1, so I'll dive in.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
What was your next one, Mirage?
Rank number 2, Infinite Dendrogram, volume number 9. That's not because it's getting an anime soon, because the anime won't even reach volume 9, but because... Okay, let me start for those who don't know what the Infinite Dendrogram is. It's about a guy who's starting to play a VR MMO, virtual reality game. And in this game, everyone gets his own personal special ability that is tailored to his personality, and that manifests as an embryo, usually a girl-shaped embryo. The game itself is massively unbalanced, so it would never get off the ground in real life.
Yeah, it would. It's fucking amazing. I'd totally fucking play that game.
Yeah, you'd have to pray that you get some useful special ability, because if you don't, you're screwed. Anyway, volume 9, because after 8 volumes of more or less just fighting the evil of the day, you finally get some background on the world in volume 9. You get to learn something about the world's history and maybe the people and forces behind it all. And of course, because of spoilers, I won't say anything more about that, but that's what you can look for when you're getting to volume 9.
All right, cool.
Haven't read number 10 yet, so that's something.
Number 10's a pretty good volume. It's really good. You should read it.
Yeah, you mentioned before. I will, definitely, as soon as it's in the next Bookwalker sale. Okay, and for my rank number 1, and that's undisputed my rank number 1 for this year, that's Quest of the Stars. And I'm saying volume 1, 2, 3, because it's basically one volume, even if it's released in 3 different chunks. It's basically the only hard sci-fi light novel that we have in English. And since I'm a fan of hard sci-fi novels, that alone would be enough reason to rate it highly. But Quest of the Stars is really there. You can see how much work the author spent to create the universe, to create the culture of the not really alien, the Arb race, that is the main political and military power in this universe. The thought and work that has gone into developing the culture, the language, the history of this world. There's a second series called Banner of the Stars that's just releasing. I think the first volume is already out. And I think this second series is going to have 6 volumes in total.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to this one, and I hope that, and I'm pretty certain that this series will top my ranking for 2020.
All right. Did you ever watch the anime of it?
Yes, I did watch the anime, and it is still one of my top 3 anime of all time.
Wow.
Yeah,
right.
I think I watched Crash the Stars. It's a really good dialogue based romance series. I think it was the one where investor meets the alien ship,
I wouldn't classify it as romance.
I know, but it's very cute.
Because there really isn't any romance in it.
I thought the anime had some tones to it, because you get the feeling that there's that relationship building between the two of them. I mean,
they're going to get there eventually.
And you get that feeling.
As
but again,
far
that might
as
have been.
No, they won't.
Well, I was going to say it might have been played up more in the anime because anime is trying to appeal to a certain audience, right? That could be a bit different.
Is quite faithful. The anime, I think they skipped a bit of the epilogue. It more or less ended at a point where the novel continued for a few more pages. But other than that, it's quite a faithful adaptation. And if I have one gripe with the novel, is that in the new translation they changed Lafille's name to Lafia. And I know L and R are more or less interchangeable in Japanese, but there was an anime, it's been out for 20 years, there was really no need to change the names. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Fantastic. Terrence, what were your big picks for this year?
Sure. So I'll just go through a few of them. I started with Defeating the Demon Lord's a Cinch if you've got a ringer. So this one I read a while back, so a little vague on the names and everything, but it's basically the story of this new hero comes to this world, gets summoned, but your perspective character is actually, I believe, the priest of the group. He is basically their healer, but also you find out that he's very, very, very high level. But he's sort of supposed to just be with them to guide them along on their journey, and he doesn't want to let them know that, yes, I'm this super high level person, because they won't put in maybe as much effort. They won't get ready and prepared as well if they think we've got this super high guy behind us. So he's got to get them accustomed to sort of that world of defeating monsters, getting up to par to be able to defeat the Demon Lord. Unfortunately for him, it's sort of, you see it coming. You see it coming where characters are starting to take his role. For instance, the mage of the group learns how to drive his cart. The hero learns how to do some healing spells, just low-level ones he teaches the hero how to do. And then as, his roles, his low-level roles, but of course, he's high-level, they think he's like level 3. As his roles start to go away, they feel like they're good enough to go on without him. So they kick him out of the party, and at that point, that's kind of where the story takes off. He's kicked out of the party, but he's gonna still watch them from behind because that is what the church basically wants him to do, or the organization behind this hero quest to defeat the demon lord. And yeah, it's a good one. It's got a lot of comedy in it, action, and yeah, just the surprise twist at the end of Volume 1 is nice. And then they just keep introducing new characters that are interesting and maybe a problem for him going forward as well. So that one was one of my one of my favorite series. And then another one that I read recently that was decent was The Combat Baker and the Automaton Waitress. So this one, it stars Lud. He is a former sort of, I think, mecha. It was like this machine that had an AI installed in it. He basically was a soldier on the war front. You learn a little bit about his past. It's obviously not all hunky-dory. He's got some things that he feels guilty about. And so when he gets out of the army, when the war is over, he decides to give up doing anything that is associated with, killing and murder. He decides to open up a bake shop. And unfortunately for him, he has this really fierce scowl on his face. Even when he tries to smile, it just does not look good. And nobody comes to his bake shop. Everybody's scared of him. And even the people that would come, there's a lot of people that are sort of ambivalent about buying from him because he was a soldier for, a certain war front that they didn't agree with. But anyways, eventually this automaton waitress comes. Of course, he doesn't realize that she is, in fact, a robot, and she is also, in fact, his former AI unit. We know this pretty much from the outset, but Lud is unaware, and when she comes in, she brings this bright personality to the shop and is able to attract the customers that he needs. It's really nice little series, but it does have some deep action and themes and things. It's not like just slice of life. This is definitely there's characters in the background involved with the army. They're looking at Lud, looking at Sven, obviously her creation, turning her from just an AI pilot assistant into this robot girl. You wonder what the army's, operative is with that. You wonder why they did that. But yeah, it's an intriguing series. I'm really curious to see where it goes going forward. And it has a lot of volumes out, so I'm interested in continuing that one. And for my last one, this one might be a little bit of a cheat because I don't even know if it counts as light novel. But it came out. It came out from a light novel publisher here, and it has pictures in it. So for me, it's as close to a light novel as you can get. The Dark Maidens. So this one was a horror sort of light novel, but definitely more in the novel sphere. It involves basically all these girls coming together to tell the tale of what happened to their friend who died. I wouldn't say horror, probably say more mystery. But there are elements where they'll bring in is there something mystical going on? Is it, murder mystery, who done it? But it's definitely on the who done it side of things. Basically, these girls, they all go to a Christian academy. They're in the literature club, and for some reason or another, one of their friends has died. And so they want to tell the tale of what happened to her as short story format. So that was really cool how there's these like little vignettes about like the final days of this girl, and also, a little bit of history of these characters and their interaction with her. And as you're going through, certain characters are saying things, and then other characters are contradicting them. I haven't read it, but it's compared to Rashomon, where there's these narratives, and you have to figure out what the true one is. There are hints, like there's little tiny hints about like maybe an object that you see in one, and you find out what the deal was in another. So you can piece together a little bit of the mystery. I do think there was some elements in the final part that kind of just they threw in there. Like you maybe couldn't have guessed it, but there definitely were elements to it where you're like, now I see, what was going on in this girl's story earlier. But yeah, basically every girl tries to accuse somebody else of committing the murder. And so you want to find out, how did this girl die? Was she murdered? What happened? And, you got to read through the book to find out. So those were the three that I picked.
Cool. Yeah, I actually really like Dark Maidens. Yeah, it was a really good book, actually. And yeah, very different. Like a very, very interesting.
It's not available as ebooks, so I haven't had the opportunity yet, but it's definitely on my list as soon as it gets in release.
Yeah, it's definitely one to check out. Yeah, it's cool to see it. It is definitely one of those books where, because they're in the literature club, the setup is like, they have they have a meeting every so many months or whatever, and everybody has to write a story based around a theme. And so the theme of this one is the death of this girl. And Terrence is right. Like reading through it and sort of picking through and seeing which stories have like common ideas, so you're kind of like, well, maybe that's what's true. And then and like you want to talk about unreliable narrators, like it's it was really good. I really like that one too. All right.
I that one is out in ebook format stateside. I don't know if somebody was saying it. It is out physical and ebook.
Yeah, do you not have it in Germany?
I haven't seen it as an ebook on Bookwalker. I'm not sure where you could pick it up.
It might be on Amazon. Maybe it's on Amazon. I don't know.
I got it on Google. But
Google Books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of these books are exclusive digitally to only certain stores, like the Combat Baker. That was exclusive to
that is exclusive to Bookwalker.
To Bookwalker, yeah. It only within the past couple months lost that exclusivity, and now it's on Amazon as well.
Well, it's only because apparently, I guess, J Novel Club struck that deal with Bookwalker that they would handle the wide release of it. But apparently, I guess what J Novel Club has said is that they will always be about 6 to 8 months or a year behind the Bookwalker releases.
Yeah.
So basically, like Bookwalker, every new volume that comes out will have like about 6 months of exclusivity on Bookwalker. So if you always want to be reading the newest volume, you have to buy it through Bookwalker. But yeah, I guess J Novel Club made it the deal with them that they would do this wider release for it. So it's kind of an interesting situation. Again, I'm not too sure what sort of made Sam go like, yeah, sure, let's do that. But whatever. But it is a good book. I agree with Terrence. It's good that it's getting a little bit more recognition and getting out there a little further. All right. So for 2019, I admit I read about a third of the books that I usually do, which is like pretty. Yeah, I know, right? It's awful. Jesus. But nonetheless, I did read enough to put together a list. Now, my first one is actually it's like the 13th volume in this series, if you go by the English numbering. And that was Koi Monogatari, which was, of course, a volume in the Monogatari series by Nishio Ishin. And it was really, it is, I think, my favorite book in the series. And I think it gets high marks because it's not often you get to, like, double digits of a series and you're like, wow, this series is actually better today than it was 6 volumes ago. But I think too, because there's always been elements in the Monogatari series that I liked, but Nishio Ishin seems to really love just filling these books with tons of nonsense and discussions that even there may be a little, well, I mean, sometimes there's a little theme in the discussion that may be relevant to the rest of the book.
Yeah, the theme is his insanity.
But for the most part, I mean, let's face it, like, an incestuous scene done with brushing of teeth, like, you're just kind of like, I have no idea what the hell this book is.
The scene.
It's symbolic, my friend.
Yeah, it is symbolic.
The sound of the
Yeah,
bristles
that's
represents the
the problem with
birth canal, and the tooth.
Oh, geez, stop. Yes, the brush going in and out. Yes, okay. We know. We read light novels and watch anime, damn it. We know all about sexual innuendo. But this particular one, unlike a lot of the other Monogatari books, it was almost pure plot from the beginning of it to the very end. It was a very different book because it was dealing with a person who had become an aberration, and it was being told by the point of view of, for the first time in the series, of an actual adult, and a pretty, again, shifty, unreliable adult at that. So this one, it kind of totally flipped my expectations of what a Monogatari book could be, and I really found myself just engrossed in a way that I hadn't really found I was in a lot of the rest of the volumes of the series, even though, like I said, I do like that series. So that was my one pick. Next one that I would put up there is 86. This one was actually one that I had been really looking forward to releasing this year, and it's the story about a kingdom that's under attack, an empire that's under attack by these mechanized, well, I guess they call themselves a republic, but they hardly act like one. They're under attack by these mechanized war machines, these AI-driven war machines from the empire. And the republic, what they basically did is that when they came under attack and they suffered such heavy losses in the beginning, they became incredibly xenophobic and racist. And so basically anybody that had a heritage that was not of the Republic's origin was essentially forced out into these concentration camps, pretty much, outside of the main walls of the Republic. And it's this really interesting novel about war and about how quickly a country that holds such high ideals can twist them and corrupt them to serve its purpose when it feels threatened, how quickly people can dehumanize another person when it becomes convenient to them. It talks a lot about even sort of like post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a very heavily political book, but at the same time, it was incredibly entertaining. There was some really good action sequences. You want to talk about a book that don't get attached to many characters because most of them won't get to the end of it. This is the one. But yeah, I was really impressed with how it was able to have a lot of very heavy ideas, but feel like it was still balanced. Like I didn't really feel like it was necessarily saying, oh, well, the left is wrong, the right is wrong, this is wrong, democracy, theocracy, all this kind of stuff. Like it seemed like it was kind of like, you know what, human beings just make bad decisions when we're under stress. when we feel threatened. So, yeah, definitely one of my favorite reads this year. But then my favorite read this year...
Actually, Justus, I just want to think, there's actually a quote that would fit that. Do you want me to do it quickly?
Sure.
In every age, in every place, the deeds of men remain the same.
That's true enough, man. And then, like I said, it does a really good job of having kind of a balanced point of view that no matter your political stripe, there's definitely something to get out of it. But it's just an
listen, both people on both sides of the fence do fucked up things. All right, let's just be honest, man. Everyone does fucked up things, no matter what side of the fence you are on. It's just human nature. It's the human condition, all right? It's the human condition where you are going to do fucked up things. Or even if you don't want to do fucked up things, you just do them because that's the human condition. So...
Yep, true enough. And, I mean, it was just an entertaining light novel on top of all that, which was, always good. However, the book that I think really, impressed me the most this year and that I was really blown away and just drawn in and just absolutely loved it was Other Side Picnic. Which is a story about these two girls and this other world that they each separately find a way into this world, and they meet because the one girl actually ends up saving the other girl's life. And they decide to, for their own reasons, kind of team up with each other to explore this world a bit more. And a lot of elements of the world have to do with urban legends or true ghost stories. And it gets very much into sort of the psychology of fear and the questioning what these entities that populate this other side, what they are, whether they're whether they are the prototype for these urban legends or whether they're feeding off of our fear and our common interest in urban legends and our common mythology and lore of urban legends and then mimicking it. There's a lot of very interesting themes, but what I really liked about it was I liked the characters, first of all, but the imagery in this book and the imagination behind it and the way that all the scenery and the different events are written, I really found myself engrossed, and just really thoroughly entertained. And it felt very different from so much other stuff. And, it has sort of that cool isekai element to the whole people of our world so we can somewhat understand them, connect to them, exploring this completely other world. But it still had almost that more urban, paranormal, urban fantasy feel to it because it was still our world that they were connecting in and out of. Plus, these girls go into it armed with guns, which was kind of cool. They don't mess around.
That's a pretty smart move, I would say.
That was one of those things, right? The girls, it was that, all too often, light novels, of course, it has girls adventuring in skimpy outfits and crap like that. And this one, it was no, these girls put a lot of thought into it. They wore hiking wear. They wore they accounted for different weather. They brought weapons and stuff like that with them because they knew that the world was dangerous. It was really just a really super enjoyable book. And actually, they just did this animated PV sort of advertisement for the series that I retweeted on my Twitter. And man, it was so cool. I was like, oh my God, I want this to be an anime so much. And even when I was reading it, I was like, man, the imagery in this is so cool. If it had a really great animation company behind it, it would be just wicked to watch. So that was
probably won't, but who knows?
But so that was my pick. That was more my top pick for this year. And of course, 86 and Koi Monogatari. And one other book that I'll give a shout out, and I'm going to cheat and just do a fourth one, is Torture Princess is also a really cool series. One to just it is not, I don't think it's anything like what I thought it would be, but it was cool.
I think I read the manga, a couple of chapters of the manga. It was all right.
I totally forgot that was out. I got the first volume. I still got to read that.
I just half the reason I bought it was because I thought the artwork on the cover was just awesome looking. But
you know what? We have now covered 18 series, and there was not a single double within.
I am surprised by that. I was thinking that as Terrence was going through his, I was like, oh my God, are we actually going to get through this? And none of us mentioned the same series.
Like a Sister Is All You Need. I could have mentioned it, but I put it to the side. I'm like, I'll talk about the ones that weren't in the cast yet. But yeah, so we didn't have any doubles.
Look at us. Wow. Wild, huh? All right. So
and without any comparing beforehand.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, we didn't even list what our picks were going to be or anything. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, just shows you that we can have a wide variety of tastes. And yet, you know what? Most of the stuff that you guys mentioned, I've read and enjoyed, like Terrence said, A Sister's All You Need. Really like that book. Goblin Slayer. Really enjoy that series. Infinite Dendrogram. I thought it was a really good series. So I mean, I think all of us can agree. Most of the books that everybody's talking about
things
are all.
I would have expected to come up that didn't were Realist Hero and Grimgar.
I'm caught up on Grimgar. It's one of those series where they're so every volume is so different, and some aren't going to hit you as well, I feel like. And the arc I just finished wasn't, my favorite. But, yeah, some volumes are so different, and it just gets, it gets weird. It gets weird later on. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I was thinking about taking Grimgar for my number 3, but I couldn't decide on which volume to take because there were several that this year I marathoned the whole series.
Wow. Well, you could have just picked the series in general, it didn't have to be a specific volume, but but yeah, okay, Grimgar. Yeah, Grimgar.
Yeah, but with Realist Hero, sadly, I didn't get to it this year, so next year will be a catch-up year.
Yeah, I don't think I read any this year either.
I actually, when I said last podcast that Realist Hero was kind of slowing down, it's starting to pick up steam again, which I'm quite happy for. The latest couple of volumes have been really, it's starting to get the meat of things. One of the really cool things that's going on is they're actually trying to figure out how they're trying to figure out more about the world because Soma is curious about this world where he is because you know that theory I had that the world that Soma is in is a post-apocalyptic future or a past or somewhere in the past or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
Soma's starting to think that as well.
Yeah, we had all sorts of theories about that. Remember when we did the podcast? We were talking about that.
Yeah, well, Soma's investigating that.
That's cool.
He's actually investigating that.
Well, yeah, because we were talking. Because we were even talking at the time. We were remember we had all those theories about what the Demon Lord was. Remember we actually said we thought the Demon Lord was another Soma. Was an alternate version of Soma, remember?
Yeah, it's really if I'm not getting into too much spoilers, but we're learning a bit more about the Demon King. We're even learning some about the monsters that he summons as well. We're actually learning a lot of that, and it's really fucking interesting. It's setting up to be real. It's doing another setup where I'm hoping that it pays off because I hope this all this work that the guy's doing doesn't come and go to waste because. It's so it's like Soma Spider So What in a sense where it takes this generic concept and kind of flips it on its head. Also the 10th also if you like the romance and harem elements, the 10th volume is pretty lit.
All right.
It's basically nothing else.
Well, there you go. All right. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. We already probably know what Bio's going to say, but Bio, of the stuff that's been announced in 2019, what are you most looking forward to?
Probably High School DxD
Surprise!
And the third part of a Sir Magical Index.
Oh my God, no, really? I'm so shocked.
Why? They're like my favorites. I actually been I'm really looking forward to like an official translation, because like fucking fans translations for High School DxD are fucking drying up, and for true High School DxD the sequel, it's becoming a fucking dry desert, man. It's getting really hard to find like latest updates, but like. High School DxD is so fucking great, and I'm so surprised it got an official like release. Like I never thought it would, but it did, and it's now obviously on the bad side. It's fucking Yen Press, and it's going to take forever. Like by the time they adapt all the novels, I'm probably going to be in my fucking 80s. But and I'm also looking forward to a Certain Magical Index Part 3, because a lot of cool shit happens. Especially for Accelerator, like something very interesting happens to him and his sort of like his career, we should say. I don't want to spoil it, because when it happens, it's fucking amazing and it's funny when it happens. But I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, High School DxD is great. You should read it.
We will. We'll read it. Come on. We'll probably have to do a podcast on it at some point.
Yes, you have to. Yes, you will.
Jean-Luc, of the titles you know of, what are you looking forward to checking out in 2020?
Okay, so the one that I'm most looking out for, I think I just skipped the license announcement for this one, or maybe because I didn't know of that series when it got announced, but kind of went under the radar, exactly like the main character wants it to be. So it's The Eminence in Shadow.
I think somebody else was going to mention that. We got a repeat.
I think for this segment, we're going to get a few repeats.
We might.
Yeah, so The Eminence in Shadows. Basically, it's a Japanese teenager that wants to become the eminence in shadows forever that may be, because he kind of has a Chunibyo syndrome, so he's kind of caught in his delusion. So basically, what it kind of means is that he wants to be an evil mastermind, but at the same time, he wants to pass as a generic mob character. And eventually, he's not able to do that in our world, because it supposedly includes also controlling shadows, and there's no magic on Earth. So eventually, Truck-kun does his thing, and he's swept away. And in that other world, eventually he finds a cage with a corpse inside. It's kind of a rotten, a corpse in semi-decomposition. And with healing magic, he heals the elf girls that's inside. And she kind of vowed to follow him for life. But in his head, it just doesn't sound right. So he wants her to be part of his Eminence in Shadows organization. But since she doesn't get what it is, he kind of invents an really out there story about an evil cult that wants to resurrect an evil demon that was sealed years and years ago. And actually, the disease that she had, she's actually like a descendant of ancient heroes. Like there was this human hero, an elf hero, and a dwarf hero, and all these descendants were cursed. And so that's what her disease is. He just made it off on top of his head. And, well, it all ends up to be true. The only thing is that he's the only one that doesn't know that it's true. So it ended up pretty ridiculous, but it's kind of the thing I want to read, because it's not like it's so bad that it's so good, but kind of.
Well, I don't think we've to see a really, I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing that one too. The whole seeing a Chuni living out his fantasy, and it just seems to work for some reason.
Yeah, because he becomes really OP. So he's really overpowered, but he wants to go undercover and be a mob character, but it doesn't work out because he's too strong. And and his organization just grows and grows and grows, and they treat him as a king, as a super ruler, and he's just caught up in delusion in his head, and he's doesn't even know that all this war goes on, and with an evil organization. Well, thing is, sometimes he fights them, but it's like he fights them as this evil mastermind guy, but after that he just goes back to a medieval school. So it's really a mashup of everything, but it's kind of my popcorn light novel. Anyway, right. So enough of that one. The next one that I'll be looking forward to, it's I'm a behemoth, an S-ranked monster, but mistaken for a cat.
Meow.
So this one is, I didn't read it, but it kind of make me, it kind of remember me of a Woof Woof story, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one, it's, interestingly enough, it's not an isekai. It's actually a knight in fantasy, in a fantasy world that dies and get reincarnated as a baby behemoth. But the baby behemoth looks just like a cat. And he wants to find a master that he can serve and protect, just like he did when he was a knight. So he kind of get adopted by an elf girl, and eventually she found out that he can use magic, but don't worry, he just passed from a domestic cat to a magic cat. No problem there.
There's never a problem with a magic cat.
No.
It's all good here. Don't question it.
Anyway,
yeah, the one concern I have with that series is the cover art. It seems to me that this one might go a lot more in the fan service direction than Woof Woof Story does.
I didn't see the cover art. But
is this the one of the big titties?
Yeah.
The elf chick, the big titties.
They all are, but
the cat,
which one?
On one of the covers, the cat is literally resting on the chest. I don't know if it's the manga or the light novel cover, but it's resting right on the chest.
Yeah. Cat or not. All right.
For third one, will be I'll let someone else see what it's about, because I'm sure. Oh no, he's not there. Oh shoot. But still, yeah, I'm sure someone will pick it up. But I'm curious to see Chivalry of a Failed Knight.
Oh yeah. That just actually released. They actually dropped the first 3 volumes in December
already.
Yeah, I know.
Huh.
Yeah, I read them.
Yeah.
Mature Purple is getting his in the mail, and he's I think he's getting them next month.
Yeah.
Okay, but since it's already out, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna go with like Bio said, High School DxD. I'm just curious to see how it's written. How well does ecchi stuff fares in novel format?
Yeah, I'm curious to see it because I've read the first volume of the manga. I've watched the anime, so I'm curious how it'll read as a book. So, but Bio's right though. If Yen doesn't up their game a bit on how fast they release that thing, my God, we're going to be old as stink when that thing gets finally done. Well, I mean, it's...
Yeah, especially if you take in like the side story volumes, DxD DX, and then DxD slash dog. By the way, DxD slash dog is like, it takes place in the same world, and it's actually the main character is actually a character in the book slash dog. He's awesome. He's like he's a human with a balance with a sacred gear, and his sacred gear turns into a fucking black dog, and then he merges with it and becomes like this fucking armored shadow werewolf thing.
Did you? Well, yeah, because I mean, High School DX.
Oh yeah. Also, his cousin is Akano. Akano is actually his cousin. So
Now, High School DxD, like not even including True, High School DxD itself is like what, 27 volumes or something? Like it got pretty high up there.
yeah, if you take like the little side stories, and then the DxD DX, which are like other side story volumes, like there's a lot of fucking volumes.
Like it could take,
and some of those
it could take 10 years for Yen to put this puppy out.
Yeah, but I'm really curious to see which one will actually end first, or we'll see the end of first. High School DxD or Magical Index?
Well, they still haven't announced. Like, Yen only has one more volume, and then they've finished a certain Magical Index, the first part, and they haven't announced that they're getting...
then they will get the New Testament of the Toe Man. It has been updated with new revelations.
Yeah, but they haven't announced it yet.
Yeah,
So,
and then there's the third series on top of that.
yeah, so I don't know what they're going to do, but whatever, we'll see. Kyle, what are you looking forward to in 2020?
All right, I only had one pick, and so I'll say it twice. Eminence in Shadow. It is, it deserves the hype coming in for it. It is intentionally, unintentionally hilarious. You got this delusional Chuny that, thinks he's, leading this, secret organization that rules over the world in the shadows. And, every line of BS that comes out of his mouth, ends up true in one form or another. And it's just comedy gold. It's just, I want to read it so bad. Quit delaying it, please. I don't want to do this on the podcast next year.
I mean, the more you guys talk about it, the more interested I want to see this series. Like it sounds like fucking guy, like it's almost like a Malkavian from fucking Vampire the Masquerade. Like they do and say all this fucking crazy shit, and it turns out it's fucking real.
Well, it's pretty much that.
The fucking werewolves are in the sewers. There are no werewolves in the sewers. Check 2 nights later. Oh shit, the Malkavian was right. There are werewolves in the sewers.
It's pretty much that.
Well,
but, it's actually coming out. Well, it's supposed to come out like in June.
God.
Yeah, they've pushed it back like 4 times now. Because it was supposed to be out in like November, and then it got pushed back to December. Then it got pushed back to January. Now they've pushed it back again to like, June or something crazy.
Yeah.
So it keeps getting pushed back. I don't know. And what's funny is they're putting it out in hardcover too, right? Like it's getting the top line treatment. It's not just coming out as any old light novel. So clearly Yen thinks that it's going to do well or should do well. So we'll see. Mirage, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, it's not quite looking forward to because I'm already reading the pre-pub. That's Tear Moon Empire.
Oh, really?
One of the new J-Novel Club series.
Yeah.
And it's about a princess who went the way of Marie Antoinette and all the way to the guillotine when her kingdom went down the drain. And after her head falls into the basket, she reawakens 10 years earlier as her younger self with all her memories and tries her damnedest to avoid going to the guillotine a second time. The story itself is a bit of a different take to My Next Life as a Villainess, but the feeling the humor is quite similar. It's hilarious to read. We've talked about it a bit in the
In the New York
anime
City,
New York City podcast. And it's I'm almost through with volume 1. The first volume is supposed to come out in February, and I'm looking forward to it. From the new releases, it's probably the one I'm enjoying the most.
Fantastic. Cool.
Blood, blood, blood. All it wants is blood. Feed the guillotine. Happy French noises in the background.
Jeez. Terrence, how about you?
Sure. So I'll go through some of the ones that I've been looking at. One of the ones that I'm going to stay in the dark on is 3 Days of Happiness. I'm just mentioning it. It's more of a novel, but the cover looked beautiful. I've heard good things about it, so I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And let me see. Banished from the Heroes Party, I decided to live a quiet life. We just don't have Banished from the Heroes Party, I decided to live a quiet life. We don't have a whole lot of those, like, slow life kind of series. Now, I don't know where this one goes direction-wise, if it stays slow life, or, obviously could ramp up into, action, because this guy apparently did have skills to be able to go out on adventures and stuff. But yeah, that one sounds interesting. Let me see. Oh, High School Prodigies Have It Easy Even in Another World. I know the anime I've heard was not good, and I don't know if that's connected to just the story itself is terrible, but I still want to read that one. I'm still intrigued by the cast, a sort of collection of characters that all have, these different like job specialties, going to another world and using them to their advantage. So that one, I know the anime has not been received as well, but I'm still interested in trying it.
Let me say about the anime that the production values were not that bad. The criticism is really more about the story.
Yeah, so that's what I've heard. I'm still gonna give it a try. I know Mummy Isekai was kind of iffy with some people too, and I still enjoyed it for what it was. So I'll still give that one a go. And of the ones we've mentioned before, I'll just mention them really quickly. In the Land of Leaddale, that one, just the cover art's beautiful. It's, it seems like it's going to be a funny one from some of the inserts, and obviously, I think you talked about Justus. It's kind of a clumsy kind of hero. Sounds interesting to me too. And let's see, there was one more I wanted to mention. Oh, The Tales of Marielle Clairac. I'm just intrigued by that one because the description you gave for that one was kind of vague with, like, what is going on with the two marriage partners. That one's the one that J Novel's bringing over. It's got the girl, the brunette on the cover with the glasses, and the guy, I think her husband. And it seems like there's some kind of scheming going on with the two. So I'm intrigued. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot in the description that told you what it was about. But yeah, I'm intrigued to find out what that is. And the art looked good. But yeah, pretty much those are going to be the ones that I'm going to look at to start the next year.
Well, mine is... Well, luckily I don't have to wait long for mine. It should come out in January if Yen doesn't delay it yet again. That's Wandering Witch, The Journey of Elena, Majo no Tabi Tabi. Yeah, I don't know what it is about that book. I mean, maybe I've just got a thing for witches with really big hats, but but I think I also I kind of like light novels I'm finding where each volume is kind of a bit self-contained, and that because you have this story set up with this girl wandering around the world and having these different adventures, it's like you get to explore the whole world. It isn't like everything's set in one city, or, you know what I mean? Like, I just, it holds some appeal to me, and I like, magic stories and stuff like that. So that's definitely one that I've been waiting for a long time. Definitely Eminence and Shadow, like you guys have mentioned. That would, I'd say that's probably the other one. And mainly it's just because of how much you guys have talked about it that I'm like, oh my God, I need to read this book. I think it was back when we actually talked about it being announced as far as the license. Yeah. And that was when Kyle was talking about what it was like, because he had read some of it or whatever. And we were all like, oh my God, this sounds good.
I've been campaigning for this one.
Right. So yeah, that's definitely, I'd say those are sort of the two that I am most looking forward to checking out. Otherwise, really, I think 2020 is going to be a lot of catching up for me, just trying to check out series that I haven't even had a chance to check out that are already out, like Mushoku Tensei, Classroom of the Elite, all that kind of stuff is sort of what I want to get into my to be read pile and finally knock it down a couple pegs. All right, fantastic. So we'll be closing out this podcast as we close out the year 2019.
We've been going on for 2 hours.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
I'm getting tired.
I'm sorry we work you so hard, Bio. And it's basically slave labor because you don't get paid.
Well, you did pay me, but I don't do this for money.
So our next episode should be JK Haru. I'm going to say that tentatively. I mean, it's definitely one we're going to do. It's just, it's one of those series that I want to have as many people on it that want to be on it as possible, because I just think that'll be good for discussion wise.
Yeah, I read JK Haru. I didn't think it was bad. Like it was a very interesting story.
Yeah, so that should be the next episode. Now, something that we were talking about beforehand, and actually Flies and I were talking a bit about this. So we're ending another year. Now, this light novel podcast, if you listen to it on another platform other than, say, YouTube, this light novel podcast came out of my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel just this past couple days hit 10,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool.
Celebrate good times. Come on.
And we've covered quite a number of series here on the podcast already. And so what we wanted to suggest to our listeners and ask our listeners is, what series should we go back to? What series should we do a follow-up podcast to? So I'm going to post a link to a survey. It'll be in the description down below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or it'll also be on our website, lightnovelpodcast.com, if you're listening to this on a different platform. Go ahead, click that link. It'll list all the series that we have previously reviewed, and it'll ask you which ones should we return to, which ones do you want us to go back to and do some more episodes on, because like I said, we've done a bunch of series, and a bunch of the series we've done have numerous volumes beyond what we've covered. So, yeah, just a little input from you, the listeners, to see what kind of stuff you would like to hear in the future. We'll probably take the top 2 or 3 picks and put together episodes of those ongoing. So, in any case, gentlemen, thank you very much for spending several hours with me tonight. To you listeners, thank you very much for your continued support and listening to the podcast. And have yourselves a very happy new year. If I suck and don't get this edited in time that it's out before the new year, I hope your New Year's Eve was good and that the rest of 2020 is fantastic. In the meantime, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye for now. For show notes and related links, visit lightnovelpodcast.com.